The stars had always promised peace. For 80 years, humanity believed that promise. They followed every rule. They respected every treaty. They bowed their heads to species that had walked among the stars for thousands of years before humans learned to make fire. Admiral Daniel Crawford had spent his entire career believing in that promise. He stood on the bridge of the carrier vessel Starfall, watching the blue and green world of Kethera Prime grow larger in the view screen. It was supposed to be a simple diplomatic mission. The Galactic Council had requested a meeting to discuss expanding human trade routes. Nothing unusual. Nothing dangerous. "Admiral, we are receiving multiple signals from the far side of the planet," said his communications officer, a young woman named Rebecca Torres. Crawford frowned. "What kind of signals?" "Military frequencies, sir. Council fleet signatures." Before Crawford could respond, the darkness around Kethera Prime came alive with lights. Ships emerged from behind the planet's shadow. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. The combined fleet of 6 elder species surrounded the small human delegation like wolves circling wounded prey. Crawford's blood turned cold. Red alert. All hands to battle stations. The view screen flickered and a face appeared. High Chancellor Vorath of the Zelthari Dominion looked down at Crawford with eyes that held no warmth, no mercy. His gray skin stretched tight over a skull that seemed too large for his thin neck. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "Admiral Crawford, by unanimous vote of the Galactic Council, humanity has been declared a threat to galactic stability. The containment protocol is now in effect. Your species will be reduced to a manageable population and confined to your home system. Resistance will result in complete extinction." Crawford gripped the railing in front of him. "We have done nothing wrong. We have followed every law, respected every agreement." "Your rapid expansion concerns us," Vorath replied. "Your technological growth is unprecedented. Your population doubles every century. The Council has determined that if left unchecked, humanity will dominate the galaxy within 2,000 years. We cannot allow this. So you will murder us for crimes we have not committed? For things we might do in the future?" Vorath's thin lips curved into something that might have been a smile. "We are not murderers, Admiral. We are gardeners. Sometimes, a gardener must cut back a plant before it chokes the garden." The transmission ended. Crawford turned to his tactical officer. "How many ships?" 412, sir. "We have 9. 9 ships against 400. Crawford knew the math. He also knew that running was their only chance. All vessels, emergency jump to the Nexus Gate. Maximum speed. The human ships turned and ran. Behind them, the Council fleet opened fire. Crawford watched 2 of his escort frigates vanish in balls of flame. A third took heavy damage and fell behind. He could hear the screams coming through the communication channels as the crew burned. They reached the Nexus Gate with 6 ships. Crawford ordered an immediate jump to Earth, but Earth was already dying. When the starfall emerged from the Nexus Gate in the Sol system, Crawford saw something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The blue marble that had given birth to humanity was surrounded by enemy vessels. Fires burned across 3 continents. The orbital defense platforms were twisted wreckage floating in the void. "Admiral," Rebecca Torres said, her voice breaking, "we are receiving reports from across human space. 17 colony worlds are under attack. New Virginia, Horizon, Eden Prime, all of them." Crawford closed his eyes. New Virginia. That was where his sister lived with her children. Casualties? Torres could not answer. The numbers scrolling across her screen were too large to comprehend. Across human space, the massacre unfolded with terrible efficiency. The Council had planned this for years. They knew where every human settlement was located. They knew the patrol schedules of every human warship. They struck everywhere at once, giving humanity no chance to respond. On the colony world of New Virginia, Captain Lisa Morgan received a frantic call from her husband Kevin. She was stationed on a patrol cruiser 3 systems away. She could only listen as he described the sky filling with enemy ships. She could hear her daughters crying in the background. Kevin told her he loved her. He told her to survive. Then the line went dead. Lisa Morgan stared at the silent communicator in her hand. Her entire world had just ended. Her husband, her daughters, her home, everything she loved, gone in the span of a single conversation. 2 billion human beings died that day. Some were vaporized by orbital bombardment. Others suffocated when their habitation domes were breached. Millions more were hunted through the streets by Council ground forces that showed no mercy to anyone. Not to the elderly, not to the children, not to those who surrendered. The galaxy watched in silence. Some species felt horror at what they witnessed. Others felt relief that it was not happening to them. None of them lifted a finger to help. Admiral Crawford gathered what remained of the human fleet and retreated to the inner systems. 47 ships out of a navy that had once numbered over 300. Behind them, they left the burning worlds that had been their homes. As the Starfall limped toward the asteroid belt, Crawford recorded a message. His face was hollow, his eyes red from tears he refused to shed in front of his crew. But his voice was steady. To all surviving human settlements. To every man, woman, and child who still draws breath. The Galactic Council has shown us their true nature. They fear what we might become, so they tried to destroy what we are. They think they have broken us. They think we will accept our fate and fade quietly into extinction. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried something new. Something hard and cold and unbreakable. They are wrong. They wanted us broken. They will learn what humanity does when cornered. We do not surrender. We do not forgive. And we never, ever forget. This is not the end of our story. This is the beginning of theirs. The message spread across every remaining human settlement. It reached hidden bunkers and refugee ships, and the scattered survivors hiding in the ruins of their colonies. It reached Lisa Morgan, who sat alone in their quarters, holding a picture of her family. She listened to Crawford's words. And for the first time since the massacre began, she felt something other than grief. She felt rage. The Council had made a terrible mistake. They had wounded humanity, yes. They had killed billions. But they had not killed everyone. And the survivors were no longer interested in peace. They wanted retribution. 6 months had passed since the massacre. The Galactic Council believed the threat had been handled. Their reports showed humanity reduced to a handful of ships hiding in the asteroid belt. Their spies reported food shortages, fuel problems, and collapsing morale among the survivors. High Chancellor Vorath told the Council that within a year, the humans would be begging to surrender. He could not have been more wrong. Deep in the Kuiper Belt, far beyond the reach of Council sensors, there was an asteroid that did not appear on any map. It was called Heaven, and inside its hollowed core, humanity was preparing for war. Admiral Crawford stood in the central command chamber, surrounded by the leaders who had survived the massacre. President Marcus Hayes looked 10 years older than he had 6 months ago. The weight of 2 billion dead civilians pressed down on his shoulders every moment of every day. General Patricia Cole had escaped the destruction of Earth's military headquarters by pure luck. She had been visiting a remote training facility when the attack came. Dr. Samuel Wright, the most brilliant weapons designer humanity had ever produced, had spent the last 6 months sleeping only 4 hours a night. "Show them," President Hayes said quietly. Dr. Wright activated the holographic display. The room filled with images of weapons that the Galactic Council had never seen. Project Prometheus, Wright said. We started this program 60 years ago, after our first contact with the Council species. We watched how they treated the younger races. We saw how they maintained their power through fear and overwhelming force. We hoped we would never need these weapons. We built them anyway. The display showed massive ships unlike anything in the human fleet. They were sleek and dark, covered in angles that seemed wrong somehow, as if they existed in more dimensions than the eye could see. Shadow drives, Wright continued. Our ships can move through dimensional space that the elder species have never discovered. We can appear anywhere in the galaxy without using the Nexus Gate network. We can strike without warning and vanish before they can respond. The display changed to show smaller objects, spheres that pulsed with strange light. Quantum disruptors. They tear apart molecular bonds at the subatomic level. One of these can destroy a ship 10 times its size. We have millions of them. Admiral Crawford studied the display. What about the swarm? Wright smiled for the first time in months. The Hive Project. Autonomous combat drones, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a firecraft. They communicate through quantum entanglement, making them impossible to jam. They learn and adapt during combat. And we have built trillions of them. President Hayes looked around the room. The Council thinks we are beaten. They think we are hiding in the dark, waiting to die. That is exactly what we want them to think. Every day they grow more confident, more careless. Every day we grow stronger. The door opened, and Captain Lisa Morgan entered the chamber. She was not the same woman who had listened to her family die 6 months ago. Her eyes were hard now. Her movements were precise and controlled. She had spent every day since the massacre training, pushing herself beyond her limits, turning her grief into something useful. Captain Morgan, Admiral Crawford said, "Thank you for joining us. You said you had a mission for me." Crawford nodded. "We are going to hit them first. A surgical strike at the heart of their power. The Valkyrie control the Nexus Gate network. Without those gates, the Council species cannot coordinate their fleets. We are going to take out the central hub on the Valkyrie homeworld." Morgan did not hesitate. "I volunteer to lead the strike. It will be dangerous. The Valkyrie homeworld is the most heavily defended planet in the galaxy." "Good," Morgan said. "I am counting on it." General Cole pulled up a tactical display. "You will have 12 ships and the first wave of swarm drones. Your job is to disable the planetary defense grid and destroy the gate hub. Get in, complete the mission, get out. Do not engage the main Valkyrie fleet, and if they corner us..." Cole met her eyes. "Then you make them pay for every inch." The planning sessions continued for weeks. Intelligence Officer Ryan Peters had spent months gathering information about Council defenses. He had bribed officials, hacked computer systems, and interrogated prisoners captured during the initial retreat. He knew the rotation schedules of Valkyrie patrol ships. He knew the blind spots in their sensor network. He knew exactly when and where to strike. During one of these sessions, Crawford pulled Morgan aside. "Lisa, I need to know that you can do this. That you will not let your anger control you." Morgan looked at him with eyes that held no warmth. "My anger is the only thing keeping me alive, Admiral. It gets me out of bed in the morning. It keeps me focused during training. When I close my eyes, I see my daughter's faces. When I open them, I see targets. Revenge will not bring them back." "No," Morgan agreed. "But it will make sure no other mother has to listen to her children die while she is powerless to help. I am not doing this just for myself. I am doing it for every human being who survived the massacre. We need to show the galaxy that we are not victims. We are not prey. We are the most dangerous species they have ever encountered." Crawford nodded slowly. "Then make them remember this day." The fleet assembled in the shadow of Haven. 12 ships crewed by volunteers who had lost everything. Each crew member had a story of loss. Husbands, wives, children, parents, all taken by the Council's cowardly attack. They had nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. Morgan stood on the bridge of her ship, the Vengeance. It was fitting name, she thought. All ships, report status. 11 voices responded. Ready, eager, hungry. Shadow drives online. Set coordinates for the Veltri homeworld. The ships hummed with power as their drives activated. Space bent around them, folding in ways that should have been impossible. The Council thinks they know us, Morgan said over the fleet channel. They think we are weak. They think we are broken. Today, we show them how wrong they are. Today, we remind them why they were afraid of us in the first place. She took a deep breath. All ships, jump. The fleet vanished from the asteroid belt, leaving nothing behind but empty space and the fading echo of engines dot across the galaxy. The Veltri were going about their ordinary lives. They had no idea that death was coming for them. They had no idea that the species they had tried to exterminate was about to announce its return in fire and blood. The storm was coming, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. The Veltri homeworld was called Xanthus Prime. It was a massive planet, 3 times the size of Earth, covered in sprawling cities that glowed with the light of a civilization that had existed for 20,000 years. Orbital platforms ringed the planet like a crown of steel. Defense stations bristled with weapons capable of destroying entire fleets. The Veltri had never been attacked in their home system. They believed they never would be. Captain Lisa Morgan emerged from dimensional space directly above the planet's north pole. One moment there was empty space. The next moment there were 12 human warships where no human ship had any right to be. Alarms screamed across the planet. Defense commanders stared at their screens in disbelief. How was this possible? The humans had no access to Nexus gates. They should have been trapped in their own system, slowly starving to death. Morgan did not give them time to think. All ships, launch swarm. Target the defense platforms. Space filled with a cloud of silver dots. Millions of autonomous drones spread outward from the human ships like seeds scattered in the wind. Each drone was no larger than a man's fist. Each one carried enough explosive force to punch through armor plating. The Veltri defense platforms opened fire. Their weapons were designed to destroy capital ships, not swarms of tiny targets. For every drone they hit, 1,000 more slipped through. The swarm reached the first platform and burrowed into its hull. Explosions blossomed across its surface. Within seconds, the platform was a dead hulk drifting in orbit. First platform down, reported Morgan's tactical officer, Lieutenant Scott Palmer. Moving to the second. One by one, the orbital defenses fell. The Veltri commanders screamed orders, trying to coordinate a response. But the human attack was too fast, too precise. By the time they repositioned their weapons, the swarm had already moved to the next target. Morgan watched the destruction with cold satisfaction. Where's the gay hub? Coordinates locked, Captain. Northern continent, coastal city of Velanter. Take us in. The Vengeance dove toward the planet's surface. Enemy fighters rose to meet them, but they were too slow, too confused. The human ships moved in ways that Veltri pilots could not predict. They would disappear for a fraction of a second, phasing out of reality, then reappear somewhere else entirely. Veltri weapons passed through empty space, where human ships had been moments before. Morgan reached the gate hub in 11 minutes. It was a massive structure, a ring of metal 5 kilometers across, surrounded by support towers and power generators. Through this gate, the Veltri controlled access to 17 major trade routes. Without it, their empire would be cut in half. Quantum disruptors ready, Palmer said. Fire. Three spheres of light streaked toward the gate hub. They struck the central ring and activated. The effect was silent and terrible. Matter simply ceased to exist in perfect spherical voids. The gate hub collapsed in on itself, metal and circuitry falling into the gaps where reality had been erased. Across the Velthury communications network, a single message spread. The Nexus gate was gone. Morgan allowed herself a small smile. All ships Phase 2 hit the military installations on the eastern continent. The human fleet split into three groups. They struck shipyards, ammunition depots, and training facilities. They destroyed sensor arrays and communication towers. Every target had been selected months in advance, chosen for maximum disruption with minimum civilian casualties. Morgan was clear about one thing. They were not the Council. They would not murder innocent people. They would destroy the enemy's ability to make war, but they would not become monsters in the process. The attack lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, the Velthury military infrastructure was in ruins. Their fleet was scattered, trying to respond to attacks that came from everywhere and nowhere. Their gate hub was a crater on the northern coast. "Captain, we are detecting massive energy signatures approaching from the outer system," Palmer reported. "The Velthury home fleet is returning. How long until they reach us?" 40 minutes at maximum speed." Morgan nodded. "More than enough time. Set course for the detention facility at coordinate 772. The detention facility was a grim fortress built into a mountain range on the southern continent. Intelligence reports indicated that over 50,000 human prisoners were being held there, survivors from the massacre who had been captured instead of killed. They were scheduled to be executed within the month. The vengeance landed outside the facility walls. Morgan led the ground assault herself, cutting through Velthury guards with the cold efficiency of someone who had nothing left to fear. Her soldiers moved like ghosts, securing corridors and disabling security systems. They found the prisoners in the lower levels. Thousands of human beings crammed into cells designed for hundreds. They were thin and weak, many of them sick, all of them expecting to die. When they saw human soldiers in the doorway, they did not believe their eyes. "Come with us," Morgan said. "We are taking you home." The evacuation took 20 minutes. Transport ships landed in waves, loading prisoners and lifting off before the Velthury could respond. By the time the enemy fleet reached orbit, the human ships were ready to leave. "All ships, shadow jump in 30 seconds, Morgan ordered. But before they left, she broadcast a message on all frequencies. She wanted the entire galaxy to hear. "This is Captain Lisa Morgan of the human fleet. 6 months ago, the Galactic Council murdered 2 billion innocent people. You thought you had destroyed us. You thought we would disappear quietly. Today, you learned how wrong you were. We are coming for you. All of you. Every species that voted for our destruction. Every official who signed the order. Every soldier who pulled the trigger. There is nowhere you can hide. There is nothing you can do to stop us. Humanity is awake, and we are very, very angry." The human fleet vanished into dimensional space, leaving behind a stunned and terrified enemy. When Admiral Crawford received Morgan's report, he allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. The mission had been a complete success. 0 ships lost. Over 50,000 prisoners rescued. The Velthury Gate Hub destroyed. But the best part came 3 days later, when Intelligence Officer Ryan Peters brought him a report. The Council species were in chaos. The Velthury were demanding reinforcements. The other species were refusing, too afraid that the humans might strike their world's next dot, and among the rescued prisoners was someone Crawford had thought dead. Commander Amy Chung, one of the finest tactical minds in human history. She had been captured during the initial massacre and had spent 6 months gathering intelligence from inside a Velthury prison, She walked into Crawford's office and placed a data chip on his desk. "What is this?" Crawford asked. "The location of every Council military asset in the quadrant," Chun replied. "Every ship, every base, every supply depot." The Valkyrie were careless with their communications. I listened. I remembered. Crawford picked up the chip and smiled. The galaxy had just gotten a lot smaller for the Council. "Welcome back, Commander. We have work to do." The war spread like fire across the galaxy. But it was not the kind of war the Council expected. There were no massive fleet battles, no predictable military campaigns. The humans fought like shadows, striking from nowhere and vanishing before retaliation could arrive. The Council admirals studied human tactics and found nothing they could understand. Their military doctrine had remained unchanged for 5,000 years. Large fleets would meet in designated battle zones. The side with more ships would win. It was simple. It was elegant. It had worked for millennia. The humans ignored all of it. Lieutenant Commander Christopher Hayes led a team of 12 specialists deep into Zorath collective territory. The Zorath were a machine-like species. Their entire civilization depended on a central computer network that controlled everything from transportation to food production. The Council believed this network was impossible to breach. They were wrong. Hayes and his team spent 3 weeks moving through enemy space, hiding in cargo containers and maintenance tunnels. They reached the central processing hub on the Zorath capital world without being detected. The security systems never saw them coming, because the Zorath could not imagine that anyone would be foolish enough to attempt such a mission. Hayes uploaded Dr. Wright's virus into the network. It was a beautiful piece of code, designed to spread slowly and then activate all at once. For 6 days, nothing happened. The Zorath continued their ordinary routines, completely unaware that something was growing inside their systems. On the 7th day, everything stopped. Power grids failed across 300 worlds. Transportation networks collapsed. Communication systems went silent. The Zorath found themselves trapped in darkness, unable to coordinate, unable to respond. Their mighty fleet sat motionless in orbit, waiting for commands that would never come. Hayes broadcast a simple message. The Zorath Collective has 24 hours to surrender unconditionally, or we will destroy your backup processing centers as well. They surrendered in 18 hours. The Council watched in horror as one of their founding members abandoned the Alliance. High Chancellor Varth called an emergency session, demanding that the remaining species commit more forces to the war. But fear had taken hold. Every species was now worried about their own defenses. What if the humans struck their homeworld next? Captain Morgan continued her campaign against the Valkyrie. Her fleet had grown as volunteers flocked to join her. Ships that had been hiding in remote systems emerged from the darkness, their crews hungry for revenge. Morgan welcomed them all. The Battle of Hollow Star became the turning point of the war. The Kethrani Republic, the second most powerful Council species, assembled their entire fleet to crush Morgan once and for all. 300 warships against Morgan's 20. The Council admirals watched with satisfaction, certain that this would end the human threat. Morgan arranged her ships in a defensive formation near the gravity well of a dying star. The Kethrani fleet approached in perfect order, their weapons charging. Their commanders already planning their victory celebrations. "Captain, they are entering weapons range," Lieutenant Palmer reported. Morgan watched the enemy fleet on her tactical display. 300 ships. Enough firepower to crack a planet. Any sane commander would retreat. Morgan smiled. "All ships, execute pattern Omega." The human ships flickered. For a fraction of a second, they existed in 2 places at once. The Kethrani opened fire, their weapons passing through empty space. When reality stabilized, The human fleet had moved behind the enemy formation. Morgan's ships opened fire from point-blank range. Quantum disruptors tore through Kethrani's shields like paper. The swarm drones flooded into the gaps, targeting engines and weapon systems. The Kethrani tried to turn their ships around, but their formations were too tight. They collided with each other, creating chaos where there had been order. Every time the Kethrani locked onto a human ship, that ship would phase out and reappear somewhere else. The enemy gunners could not predict where their targets would be. They fired blindly, hitting nothing but empty space, and sometimes their own allies. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, 240 Kethrani ships were destroyed or disabled. The survivors fled in disarray, their fleet shattered. Morgan had lost only 2 vessels. Admiral Crawford received the news aboard the Starfall. He immediately dispatched Commander Chen to negotiate with the Kethrani government. The terms were simple: withdraw from the Council Alliance, provide intelligence on remaining enemy forces, and pay reparations to the human survivors. The Kethrani agreed within a week. The war was turning, and everyone knew it. The junior council species began sending secret messages to the human fleet, offering to defect in exchange for protection. Some of them had voted for the containment protocol out of fear, not malice. They had watched the Zelthari manipulate the vote, had felt pressured to go along with the majority. Now they saw a chance to escape. Dr. Wright deployed his final weapon, the Harbinger satellites. These devices were capable of destabilizing the core of a gas giant, turning an entire planet into a small star. It was the most terrifying weapon humanity had ever created, and Wright had hoped they would never need to use it. Crawford ordered a demonstration. An uninhabited system was selected, far from any civilian populations. The council was invited to watch. The satellite activated. The gas giant shuddered, its atmosphere churning with impossible energy. Then it ignited. A new star blazed to life where a planet had been moments before. Crawford transmitted his message. We do not wish to use this weapon on inhabited worlds. We do not wish to kill civilians, but we will defend ourselves by any means necessary. The Galactic Council must surrender and face justice for their crimes. If they refuse, we will do what we must. The junior species fled the Council Alliance in waves. Within a month, only 3 species remained: the Zelthari Dominion, the Volanthi Empire, and the Mordith Hierarchy. These were the elder species, the ones who had ruled the galaxy for millennia. They were too proud to surrender, too arrogant to admit they had made a mistake. High Chancellor Varath made one final attempt to rally support. He broadcast a speech across the galaxy, calling on all species to unite against the human threat. He spoke of galactic stability, of the danger posed by human aggression, of the need to contain this violent species before they destroyed everything. Nobody listened. The galaxy had seen what humanity could do. They had watched the Council's finest fleets crumble against human tactics. They had seen the Harbinger satellites turn planets into stars. They wanted no part of this war. Admiral Crawford met with President Hayes to plan the final campaign. The Zelthari homeworld, Hayes said. That is where this started. That is where it must end. Crawford nodded. We will need every ship we have. This will not be like the other battles. Vorath will fight to the last. He knows what awaits him if he surrenders. A trial, Hayes said. A public trial, broadcast across the galaxy. Every species will see justice done. They will see that humanity does not sink to the level of our enemies. Some of our people want blood, Crawford warned. They want us to burn the Zelthari worlds the way they burned ours. Hayes stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. I understand their anger. I feel it too. But if we become what we are fighting, then we lose something far more valuable than this war. We lose who we are. He turned back to Crawford. We will have our justice. We will hold the guilty accountable. But we will not murder innocent people. We will not become monsters. When this is over, I want humanity to be proud of how we won, not just that we won." Crawford saluted. "Understood, sir. We will do this the right way." The fleet began to assemble. Ships from every surviving colony, crewed by volunteers who had waited for this moment since the massacre. The final battle was approaching, and humanity was ready. The Zelthari homeworld was called Zeldar, a world of silver towers and ancient temples that had stood for 30,000 years. It was the heart of an empire that had dominated the galaxy since before humans learned to write. High Chancellor Vorath stood in his palace, watching the sky through windows made of crystal that had been old. When humanity's ancestors were still living in caves, he knew they were coming. His spies had reported the human fleet gathering at the edge of Zelthari space. The largest fleet in human history, they said. Ships from every surviving colony, every hidden base, every corner of the galaxy where humans had managed to survive. Vorath had gathered his own forces. The combined fleets of the three remaining council species surrounded Zeldar in layers of steel and fire. 400 warships, each one crewed by soldiers who had been told that the alternative to victory was extinction. But even as he prepared his defenses, Vorath made one final gambit. Hidden devices had been placed on the remaining human colony worlds during the original massacre. Bombs capable of destroying entire cities, waiting for his command. If the humans attacked Zeldar, he would destroy everything they had left. He broadcast his ultimatum to the approaching fleet. "Withdraw now, or I will burn your remaining colonies. Your people will die screaming, just as they did before. You cannot save them. Turn back or watch them burn." Admiral Crawford received the message on the bridge of the Starfall. Around him, officers waited for his response. In the distance, the Zelthari homeworld glowed like a jewel against the darkness of space. "Sir," Commander Chun said quietly, "he may be bluffing." "He is not," Crawford replied. "Vorath is many things, but he is not a bluffer. He means exactly what he says. Then what do we do?" Crawford smiled, a rare expression on his weathered face. "We trust our people." 3 days earlier, covert teams had been deployed to every human colony world. Intelligence officer Ryan Peters had discovered the location of the hidden devices through intercepted communications. General Patricia Cole had personally led the mission to neutralize them. Vorath did not know it yet, but his final weapon was already useless. Crawford opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Crawford. The enemy believes he has leverage over us. He believes we will break. He is wrong. Proceed with the attack." The human fleet moved forward like a tide of vengeance. Captain Lisa Morgan led the vanguard, her ship the Vengeance cutting through space at the front of the formation. Behind her came ships bearing the names of every world the Council had destroyed. The New Virginia, the Horizon, the Eden's Memory. Vorath activated his devices. Nothing happened. He tried again. Silence. Across his command center, officers exchanged worried glances. The human fleet was getting closer. The defensive formations were shifting, preparing for battle. "High Chancellor," his admiral reported. "The devices are not responding." Vorath's gray face went pale. For the first time since the massacre, he felt fear. The battle began at dawn over Zeldar. The Council fleet outnumbered the humans 2-1, but numbers meant nothing against human tactics. Morgan's ships phased through enemy formations, appearing where they were least expected, striking vulnerable points before vanishing again. The swarm drones flooded into the battle, millions of silver dots weaving between the larger ships. They targeted engines and weapon systems, crippling vessels without destroying them. Crawford had given specific orders: minimize casualties where possible. They were here for justice, not genocide. High Chancellor Varath watched the battle unfold with growing desperation. His admirals reported losses mounting by the minute. The human ships seemed to be everywhere at once, impossible to track, impossible to predict. "Fight harder," Varath commanded. "Destroy them all." But his orders could not change reality. The Council fleet was breaking, its formations crumbling under the relentless human assault. Captain Morgan requested the honor of delivering the final ultimatum. Crawford granted it without hesitation. She broadcast on all frequencies, her voice reaching every ship in the battle, every city on Zaldar, every corner of the galaxy that was watching this moment unfold. "High Chancellor Varath, you murdered 2 billion innocent people. You burned our homes. You killed our children. You thought we would accept our fate quietly. You thought we would fade into history while you congratulated yourselves on your wisdom." Her voice grew harder. "Now look upon what your arrogance has created. Look upon the fleet that surrounds your world. Look upon the weapons that could turn your civilization to ash. You wanted us contained. You wanted us broken. Instead, you united us. You forged us into something harder than steel, sharper than any blade." She paused. "Humanity does not forgive. Humanity does not forget. And humanity never surrenders. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. Your fleet will stand down. You and every official who voted for the containment protocol will submit to trial. If you refuse, we will demonstrate exactly what our Harbinger satellites can do." The hour passed in silence. Council ships began surrendering in waves, their crews unwilling to die for a cause that was already lost. The Zelthari fleet fought on, but their numbers dwindled with every passing minute. Varath refused to surrender. He retreated to his palace, surrounded by his personal guard, determined to go down fighting. General Patricia Cole led the ground assault. Her soldiers dropped from orbit in armored pods, landing around the palace complex. The Zelthari guards fought bravely, but they were outmatched. Human soldiers moved through the palace halls, securing rooms, capturing officials who had tried to hide. They found Varath in his throne room, sitting on a chair that had been carved from a single piece of alien crystal. He looked old, defeated, a hollow echo of the leader who had ordered the destruction of humanity. Cole stood before him, her weapon trained on his chest. "High Chancellor Varath, you are under arrest for crimes against humanity. You will be transported to a secure facility and held until your trial." Varath laughed, a dry and bitter sound. "A trial? You think a trial matters? You think your pathetic species will be satisfied with a trial? You want blood. You want revenge. You are no different from us." "You are wrong," Cole replied. "We are very different from you. That is why you lost." Varath was taken into custody, along with every official who had voted for the containment protocol. They were transported to a secure facility on a human world, where they would await trial. President Hayes arrived at Zaldar 3 days later. He stood on the steps of the Council Citadel, surrounded by his officers and broadcast to the entire galaxy. "Today marks the end of a dark chapter in galactic history. The species that ordered the massacre of 2 billion human beings have been defeated. Their leaders will face justice. Their military power has been broken." He looked out at the assembled crowds, both human and alien. "But we did not fight this war to become what we destroyed. We fought for justice, not vengeance. We fought for the future, not the past. The innocent citizens of the defeated species have nothing to fear from humanity. We will not punish children for the crimes of their leaders. We will not burn cities because their ancestors burned ours." His voice grew stronger. "A new order is coming to this galaxy. One where no species can destroy another simply because they fear what that species might become. One where justice applies to everyone, weak and strong alike. Humanity did not ask for this war, but we will ensure that it was not fought in vain." Admiral Crawford stood beside Captain Morgan as the human flag rose above the citadel. It was a simple design, a blue circle on a field of black, representing Earth against the darkness of space. Morgan watched the flag climb higher, her eyes distant. "Is it enough?" she asked quietly. "Does this bring them back?" Crawford shook his head. "No, nothing can bring them back. Nothing can undo what was done to us." "Then why does it feel so empty?" Crawford placed a hand on her shoulder. "Because revenge is never as satisfying as we imagine. The hole they left in our lives will never be filled. But we have done something more important than revenge. We have ensured that no one will ever try this again. Every species in this galaxy now knows what happens when you push humanity too far." Morgan was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "I suppose that will have to be enough." The galaxy watched as humanity took its place among the stars. Not as a junior species, not as a threat to be contained, but as equals. The council was dissolved, replaced by a new assembly where every species had a voice. The trials of Vorath and the other architects of the massacre lasted for months. They were broadcast across the galaxy, every piece of evidence examined, every victim named and remembered. In the end, justice was served. Not vengeance, not cruelty, but justice. Humanity had learned something about itself during the war. They had discovered reservoirs of strength they never knew existed. They had proven that they could face extinction and refuse to break. They had shown the galaxy that mercy and power were not opposites. The stars had promised peace once. That promise had been broken. But humanity would build a new promise, a better one, written in the language of justice and strength. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was not to be underestimated, not to be contained, and never, ever to be broken. The stars now belonged to everyone willing to earn them.